Hello and welcome back to N2 the Chatterverse, where two gents share their 2 cents on pop media. I am Victor Dandridge, the hardest working man in comics.
And I'm Bill, and I'm Mr. Technical Difficulties.
Not technical. I mean, listen. We tried, okay? We definitely tried.
Well, there wasn't just that, though. The setup didn't work at all.
Right.
Well, actually, it could have gotten to work.
Could it? What did we need?
We could have just used one camera and one mic.
Oh.
We could have been like, on top of each other. I don't know why it didn't work, because when I set it back up here...
It was fine?
It was fine. And I think it had to do with my laptop.
Okay, all right.
But that still doesn't, ring true with me.
Right.
And the other part of the technical difficulties would have been getting COVID.
Yeah, well, that listen, so from what I understand, in a crazy sort of way, COVID was active on both coasts, killing everybody. Like, folks at San Diego got it.
Yeah.
Folks at Raleigh, GalaxyCon got it too. So, it was super active.
Well, it's still, those are still super spreader events.
Also true.
In the past, it would just been like the con flu.
Right. Con crud, but now it's got a name.
Yeah.
What if COVID has always been here? We just called it con crud.
Well, there was one year that I came back and I got sick.
Right.
And then 3 weeks later it was fine, and then 2 weeks later I got sick.
Ooh.
This happened like 3 times.
Okay.
And it was actually really frustrating to me.
No doubt.
Because I was just like, am I dying?
I mean, I don't want to laugh about that, but I get that.
But, I mean, that's just the way I felt, though. It felt like I was, because I kept getting sick, and then I finally stopped getting sick. But it didn't feel much different than this, other than, I spent a day in bed.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm not getting up.
Now, when you told me that you were coughing so hard you felt it in the abs, and I was like,
but it's not that I felt it in the abs. It's that my abs got to work out. And then the next day, if I coughed, it was the pain of working out my abs. So it was super sore. So I really tried not to cough.
No, I don't. Yeah. Listen, I totally get that. You get sick and it's the greatest ab workout ever, but it sucks.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are talking about post San Diego Comic-Con. We were going to try to shoot something while we were on site. We did shoot a little bit of footage that I got to figure out how to get that to you to put into something. We'll figure that out.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think. So my first time going was in 2017. You had gone quite a few times before that.
Yeah.
So in the general expression of your experience here, how does this particular year's show rate for you?
It was probably about mid,
okay,
I would say, because stuff finally was going back to Hall H, even though Sunday there wasn't anything.
Nothing in Hall H. I thought that was very, very interesting.
But it also just, reminded me that Sunday is a throwaway day.
Sunday is kind of...
And I really should schedule my flight out in the morning.
I mean, yeah, I get that.
But, what was in Hall H actually was pretty good this year, even though I wasn't really looking forward to it. And, and we walked out on some of the stuff.
Right.
The Keanu Reeves stuff. Berserker was
definitely fun.
Was interesting. And seeing him on stage, I don't think I'd ever seen Keanu Reeves on stage before.
Really?
And I'm trying to think of why I would.
Not a Matrix movie?
No, Matrix. No.
Yeah, because I'm like, no, because that would have been the year of COVID that we would have gotten that. So no, okay, all right.
And I couldn't think of anything else.
Wow.
And it was interesting.
Yeah.
How animated he was, and he was animated.
He was definitely animated. Yeah.
And some of the Star Trek stuff, I was just like, it's TV shows.
Sure.
And I hate doing the TV show thing, because it's the recap of the previous season, or they're in a season and they can't talk about it, or they haven't started the next season, they haven't seen a script.
So there's nothing they can say.
There's nothing they can talk about, and then people ask questions about everything they just told you that they couldn't talk about.
I think that's mostly frustrating, because there's supposed to be a person there that vets the question,
right?
And you go, did you not understand what they asked you? Did they ask you something different, than what they told you they were going to ask? Because guys, they can't answer that. What are we doing?
And then there was the Collider directors on directing that I was like, well, I'm going to miss that, but you pushed us towards producers,
yes,
on producing, which I was like. I didn't realize it was Collider thing.
Right.
Had I realized that, I'd been like, in.
Absolutely.
But I'm like, yeah, sure. And then we sat down. I'm like, and I saw Frosty, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting.
It was too.
Yeah.
Like,
and I guess I would have liked to have been there when it started,
for sure.
but also
didn't know.
didn't know.
Yeah. That one was an interesting one too, because I wanted to go to that one strictly on like once, like, because like you said, we were walking around, we didn't know that that's what was there, and popped in. They were like, well, it's producers, and considering like the work that I'm doing and like the development deal stuff that I've got, I don't know what that means. So I'm like, well, this is an opportunity for me to learn something.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the overarching like context of what I was trying to get out of the show was, what can I learn while I'm out here? And so it was a fascinating conversation. It was who was it? Lorenzo de Bonventura. How do you say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got it.
Whew.
I'm glad you said it because I couldn't even remember his name. I remember the D part, and that was about it.
We had Roy Lee, and then who was the third person?
That was it.
Because Lorenzo was here.
Avika
Roy was here.
Goldman.
Yes, Akiva Goldman. That's right. And you like when you think about it, like that's a good mix of storytellers right there in terms of like production. I mean, how many years would you say that is in terms of industry work?
Oh, it's got to be close to 100.
I would imagine, because like those
definitely
names,
80 years.
Yeah,
worth,
yeah.
But yeah, those guys have been around for a while.
Yeah.
And then I liked how they were talking about working together on stuff, writing and producing.
Right.
Which was it was interesting.
It was. I think that was kind of the place and space for me were the panels. And we'll save Hall H like for a separate episode, but like we got a chance to.
Let's be honest about the Hall H stuff. We're gonna save the Marvel stuff for.
Okay, all right.
That's what
you're right. Because that is really what it is.
That's what it was.
That is true. I was trying to be polite.
Actually, the two panels we could talk about. The one we didn't go to.
Yes.
And the one we went to.
And the one we went to.
Yeah.
We could definitely do that. So what was crazy fun for me, of course, is like I said, I'm going for a learning sort of context for the show. And I sat in on a couple of panels that, as has been my thing since last year, my goal is to go in there and ask like a prolific question, or at least I think it's prolific question, to try to not only give like due reverence to the people on the panel, but to also gain some attention for myself. And this year was interesting because I think last year it worked more openly. This year it was more subtly effective. Like I had people on the slide like come to me later on like, hey, that was a really good question. In fact, like one, and I don't want to say which panel it was because I don't want to put nobody out, but I actually had somebody that I had moderated for on that panel come to me and go, were you a ringer in the audience? Like, did they plant you? And I'm like, nah, that was my question. He's like, well, then why weren't you moderating the panel as a whole? And I'm like, I wasn't asked to. I don't know. I'm just here. Like
I enjoy that. That's like 2 years in a row you've essentially been asked that question.
Yes.
Because last year it was, why aren't you on this panel? During the panel,
during the panel,
and it wasn't just said once; it was said multiple times.
No.
It was very interesting to see that. But I think I probably know what you're talking about.
You probably do.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
But yeah, like getting to be in that space is very nice. Like there are times when I have to kind of take stock of, we'll call it my position in the Comic-Con space. And sometimes I'm fully aware of it. And sometimes I'm like, I'm just this guy that's at shows.
Right.
And it was nice. It was very nice to be like, no, you're actually good at this and people recognize you for it. I'm like, oh, sweet. I will totally take that. The best iteration of it, one, like I gotta give a shout out to Dr. Vanessa Hintz, my sister from another mister, who when we did our Spectrum of Blackness panel, we always have a good time with that one. What was interesting, it's part of the Comics Arts Conference piece, right? And so it's a lot more academic, and the panels before us, it was a long panel, it was like an hour and a half long panel before us, was kind of dry, right? And it was interesting to compare the CAC panels versus the other ones, where it seems like the ones that are just straight up attached to the show, people were way more excited to be there, as though like they had something to prove. Like they're like, listen, I'm in San Diego and I'm going to tell you why I'm at San Diego. The energy was better. than the CAC stuff. And I really, really, really want to kind of cement my relationship with CAC so I can help build up their content so that it's all around more energetic.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be one of my goals for next year.
Well, the funny thing you say about Dry is that you didn't go to CinemaCon
No, I did not.
and sit through a guy discussing what sound is, and then the next guy discussing what video is, and the guy that did the sound. Now, first of all, they're very technical about the whole thing, and it comes across as very technical. The guy with the sound went through the spectrum, and I'm like, he's like, yeah, I'm sorry that they got to be ear piercing. I'm like, yeah, you think you would have like
tested that maybe?
Well, I think he knew it was coming, and he just didn't care.
Oh my God.
He's like, it's not a big deal.
No, sir.
Yeah.
That is a big deal, and now we're all deaf and we hate you.
And then he was the first one, and the guy doing the video it was more interesting to me because he was saying things that I understood.
Gotcha.
But also at the same time, it was the driest of white bread toast that you'd ever had. And really the reason I was there was because I wanted to get more involved with the server part. Mm-hmm. But we ran out of time. We had to leave. They're like, you can stay. I'm like, no. I was literally fighting to stay awake. And it was like, I think it was like 10:30 in the morning.
Oh my God!
And this is out in Vegas, so for me, it's already in the
you're.
And I was like, I can't do this. I'm like, if it's the whole. There's a way to polish things up.
Yes.
But also the people that technically know everything don't necessarily have that polish.
No, they don't. They don't. We actually watched the guy that was supposed to be watching The Room. He fell asleep on the panel before us, and so like that became our benchmark. Was like, we got to keep that guy awake. Like no matter what else happens, keep that dude awake.
Well, you could throw things at him.
No. We wanted to perform, be loud enough that he was gonna stay awake, which we did. But the other panel that I was on that was very exciting. It was the last panel that I did. Was the most neurotic superhero in the multiverse. And it was held by our friend, Dr. Travis Langley. And when Travis first came to me, he said that different people were like dropping out of the panel, specifically legendary comic book writer Jerry Conway. Mm-hmm. And I was the replacement for Jerry. I'm like, don't say that to me. My head is big enough. Like, what are you doing? But Jerry ended up coming anyway. So
nice.
It was super nice. And
this was Sunday, right?
Yeah, this was Sunday. So it was Justine Maston, Jerry Conway. There was another panelist, and I cannot think of her name right now. It's Natasha Lee, I think. Myself, a cartoonist, Bob. I cannot think of how to say his last name because it's a good last name.
Like Sienkiewicz?
Not quite, but close. Like it's close like that. And then it was Jonathan Butler, comic TV writer, and I can see the last dude's face. He's a TV writer. They both wrote for like the Arrowverse stuff.
Okay.
And what was crazy was the opportunity to kind of express like, who's the most neurotic superhero. Mm-hmm. Travis made me go last, and I think he did that on purpose. I've done this panel with him before, and I always try to like come up with like a new answer based on like current media or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I think he knows that I will do that. And so he'll save me for last. And I think I brought up to you before I gave that answer that I think the most neurotic person was Amanda Waller, right? And that part of her thing is like, technically she is trying to do something good. She's just evil about it. Like,
well, I mean, but that's the way like villains are written anyway.
Exactly.
They feel like they're the hero of the story.
They always feel like they're the hero.
And where I don't have a problem with that most of the time, but there are times when someone's just evil.
You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. I think the juxtaposition between her methodology and ideology of things and Lex Luthor's, Lex would be just evil all the time based on against her. But here was the wild part. At the end, Travis asked us which company between Marvel and DC has the most neurotic characters. Like, flat out, who has it? And Bill, I got to tell you, I did a egregious thing. Jerry Conway was like, Marvel, obviously. And I go, I don't know. And literally the room was like, excuse me? Did you just disagree with Jerry Conway? And my answer was, it changes. Every 20 years, it changes. And they're like, explain. And I said, okay, so 1940s and 50s, we'll say it's DC. Marvel doesn't really exist. I mean, yes, you had Cap and you had Namor and things like that, but Marvel really doesn't exist. So non-issue, it's DC.
Yeah.
60s and 70s, it's Marvel all the way.
Yeah.
You've got the creation of the Fantastic Four, the Crazy First Family. You got Spider-Man. You got the X-Men. It goes into the 70s where you get Punisher. Like, yeah, I'll give you that. But are you actively saying, like, in the 80s, when we got Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen, Swamp Thing, that Marvel was producing more neurotic characters than DC was?
Yeah.
Literally, when I said Watchmen, the room was like, oh my God, how did we forget that? I'm like, I'm just saying, like, I think it shifts. Like,
you just made the point of them making that animated movie.
Oh, don't make me justify that.
No, you did.
Did I?
Yeah. You just said.
In the 80s, man. It was the 80s.
But the crowd was, how did we forget that?
Dang
well,
it.
now we're going to make sure that you don't forget it.
Ooh, you got to watch this cartoon again. I'm sorry, Alan Moore. I just reversed your rights like another 20, 30 years.
Not as if DC isn't going to continue.
Oh, they're going to continue
that train.
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, the new format that they have, the little small digest ones, Watchmen was one of the first ones that
what
they
a shocker. I'm surprised they haven't like released it page by page type thing. Like one of those real big oversized ones. It's and
you don't even flip the pages to see it. Is every single page is just a new page. Oh my God, he would be so mad, so mad. But yeah, that was like a great moment where not to correct Jerry Conway, because that's but it was just like a little nuance that I got to bring to that conversation, and it was great that the audience like chimed in super hardcore, especially when they were like, look at Rorschach's face, like of course he's neurotic. I'm like, just saying, I'm just throwing it out there. But it was cool. It was cool. What panels outside of the ones that we went to did you go to?
I didn't go to any.
None at all?
No, because I don't know. I like to take it like the whole thing in.
I got you.
I spent a lot of time on the floor,
right,
walking around, looking at different things. It's very few and far between when I'm just like, I look to see what the panels are.
Got you.
And I heard most of them anyway, and I was like, it doesn't, I've done it.
That's fair.
That kind of thing too. And not even that you could say that for the Marvel stuff too.
Sure.
It's also,
its presentation though is a big deal.
Right.
So I totally get that.
But no, I just like mostly on Friday it was standing in line.
Yeah.
Because we got there at like 1:30 in the morning.
Right. And you had to hold court in order to get ready for the tickets for or the wristbands for Hall H. The next
you mean
day.
the pre-wristband?
The pre-wristband, get the wristband.
Get the wristband.
Explain that to me.
I can't explain it because I don't understand it. I was like, if it was something where they, because you hear if you have a wristband, you can hold the line for two other people.
Okay.
Which that goes back to when you buy a badge.
Right.
You can buy it for two other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But they were passing them out like an hour and a half before they were going to give out the real ones.
Okay.
And I'm like, there is no way you're going to get through this line. And we were in a serpentine line.
Right.
So we were at the bottom of like the third part of it.
Mm-hmm.
We never saw them come down the first.
Wow. You think they ran out? Like, is that what
I know.
it is?
I think what it was is that they realized they weren't going to get
There's
through
no
it.
way.
But also, it didn't make any sense to start it then anyway. But
Right.
if they were going to do it, they should have done it like at noon.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
And it should have been one of those things where it's like not a permanent type wristband. It would be like you just like a friendship bracelet.
Something you're holding
like,
on to. You take it off.
You give
whatever.
it to the next person that's sitting in line. And I, to be honest with you, I didn't spend a whole lot of time in line. There was in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I also got in like a 2 or 3 hour nap.
Yeah.
But I think I took off at like 8:30 in the morning, and like I don't know if I got I know I didn't. I didn't get a shower, but I changed and I walked around and did some stuff and went back and forth with the line. And then I walked around with one of my friends that was out there. And I actually saw two people that like I hadn't seen in years that I used to work with.
Oh, that's cool.
One I wasn't expecting at all, which I thought was a little weird. But and I get this question a lot of times, like, because I said, AMC had a booth. They're like, why? And I'm like, that is a legit question.
Yeah.
I go, but they were selling
merch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at no time were they ever really busy.
That is true. You could definitely walk up at any time. I think maybe we saw a line curve around the side once.
But that may not have been for them.
Yeah,
that could have been for something else.
Literally, yeah. Anything.
And it was interesting. And I talked to the people that I work for, and they were they were like, "Why?" And I'm like, "This is what they were doing."
It's a thing.
He's like, "That's an awful lot of money
for that space." Absolutely,
yeah.
I'll give you that. Does that inspire you to do things a little bit more localized of that same vein? Like, does the theater that you're working at, or do they have an interest in creating merch like that?
No. I mean, we're doing like popcorn buckets, that kind of stuff, and we're doing it on a small scale,
right?
Which I'm all for.
It's very manageable
because you just go, you get a case of this. When they're gone, they're gone. Like, cool. Yeah. That's what I want to do. Because I can remember back in the day, we would get these popcorn buckets, and we would get like 10 cases and stuff. Oof. And I'm like, there's no way we're going to go through this stuff. And then all of a sudden, it's the half price.
Right.
And then it's the, do you have any left? Give them to the staff. And
Got you.
And we kind of went through that with Taylor Swift.
Really?
Yeah, because everybody was doing a cup and a bucket kind of thing. We had a ton of stuff.
Got you.
And that's, I understood taking the risk, and I was all on board. I just thought the quantities were high.
I get you. One of the things that happened out there that we didn't see, we did apply for it, was the Deadpool and Wolverine movie showing. The response that I've heard from people watching it there, they had a great time, and the cameo guest that showed up was like a really big deal. But there was one cameo guest that was not there, and I'm curious, do you think there's a reason why this particular guy wasn't there? Was his cameo just that small, or they didn't want to bring him in?
Are you talking about the first one, the first big one?
Yes.
I think it's twofold.
Okay.
He probably was busy.
Fair.
And two, if he were there, there's a possibility that might outshine the main,
it definitely would have.
the main one. It would have been, you brought back RDJ, why isn't this guy?
I'm not going to lie. For that thing, that's who I thought it was going to be. I did not think it was RDJ under any circumstance. I definitely was like, is it going to be him? And then it wasn't. So,
well, it didn't make any sense the way that they were giving it to, because we had to give you one of the best actors,
right?
And
like, what?
He won an Oscar.
Sure.
So I mean, that's
definitely.
Someone said to me the other day, yeah, he's not really doing anything. I'm like, yeah, he only won an Oscar.
Yeah, like,
it's like, why he did do that? Yeah.
What?
Yeah, he's just like, he hasn't found, like, I mean, if he wants to do another Sherlock Holmes, he probably can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so.
If you want to do Dr. Dolittle, he could.
Well,
I'm not saying he should.
He would have to put up the money on that one. That one tanked pretty hard.
But I think he could do it if he wanted to. Like, that's
right, but he's, like I said, he's going to kind of like Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
And how much money did he lose?
Like a bunch, too, right? That was crazy.
He put up like $30-some million, like $38 million or something like that. 36 maybe.
Didn't make none of that back.
No, and it cost $100 million to make, and it made like $14 million.
Yeah.
No, I just, I think that if he were there, because everyone was saying that, I heard there were boos when RDJ. I go, if there was anything, they were saying Doom.
People. I mean,
I'm like, there was nothing of that.
Yeah, not
near
even close.
Us.
Wow.
And the only thing I thought was irritating was everybody standing up.
Oh my God, we will talk about that. But we will talk about that. Now, with the Deadpool and Wolverine thing, I missed the drone show completely.
I didn't see it either.
Okay, because let me not say completely. I was having dinner, and we could see the fireworks portion, but we just thought they were doing fireworks. We had no idea that there was like a drone show on the other side of the building. I am kind of sad that I missed that, actually. Like,
I get it, but also it's one of those things where
if you didn't know, you didn't know.
Yeah, and I saw the only thing I saw from it was the Fantastic Four logo.
Okay.
Like I was there for the Star Wars concert.
Okay.
After episode 7 panel,
yeah.
which was fun. Everyone got a lightsaber, which I gave to a buddy of mine to give to his son.
You're a good man.
And
I wouldn't have done it. I would have been like, that's mine.
It's one of those ones that just it extends open type thing.
Okay.
Like, and I was like, yeah, it's whatever. But it was, it was fun being at the concert, and then when they played the opening title sequence, then there was a bunch of fireworks.
That's cool.
And the funny thing was that all the people standing in line for Hall H the next day, which was Saturday, were like, what the hell's going on?
What is this? What's happening over there?
Yeah.
No, that's cool.
And then the people that we met up with, they're like, yeah, we had to decide between that and Hall H the next day. And I said, well, I didn't, because I did both. I mean, I was
losers. What are we doing?
I was by myself on both of them. So getting through the line, for the next morning, I went to get breakfast, and I noticed that it was just the chutes. There wasn't a line. They'd already let people in.
Yeah.
So I just, I stood there, and it was halfway through the very first panel that I got in.
Not bad. Not bad.
So I got in just before Suicide Squad.
Okay.
The first one.
Okay. Not bad. Not bad.
But yeah, I understand missing stuff like that, but also it's just like, I guess I'm just one of those people that like I can see it later.
Of course. Of course.
But there is something to be said about being there at the time.
Absolutely.
I also hate fireworks.
So. Well, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of those, which is why I think when they went off, I was like, oh, it's fireworks, and just went on about having dinner. But I did love the footage of the Deadpool Wolverine cast watching it happen, because I guess like either they didn't know it was going to happen or they didn't know what exactly it was. Yeah. And that was like, I love seeing that pure joy side of people where it's like, this could be work, absolutely, but we're also having like the greatest time ever.
Well, I mean, if you listen to what they say, that they're fans of this stuff
exactly
as much as everybody else is, I would say, to an exception. But also, if you're Ryan Reynolds, you're just eating everything up because the numbers are pouring in, and once again, anyone who didn't think that Hugh Jackman was worth an extra $250 million at the box office, better take a look at the numbers, because they're at $900 million now.
Listen, I'm eating those words. I will openly say that I did not think, if it did not do a certain thing, and we haven't done a review of that yet, have we?
No.
Oh, we have to record that too. No. If they hadn't done a certain thing, that I didn't think it would cross $1 billion, and I'm wrong. I am wrong. It looks like it's going to do it. You said this weekend is the projection.
Yeah, it's probably Sunday. Nice, it's going to hit $1 billion.
Nice. That's impressive. I think, because again, not getting into it, did I think that there was a lot of fun there? Absolutely. Did I think story-wise, though, that it was going to garner as many rewatches? I didn't. So I'm kind of happy being wrong about that one, because I think there's...
Well, I don't think people were there for the story, to be honest with you. Because that whole weekend, was it good? Like, it didn't have a good story, but it was a lot of fun.
It was absolutely fun.
And that's all it needed to be. And I think that if you look too deeply into a story for Deadpool, I think you're asking a little too much.
That's fair. That's more than fair. Okay, so with the overall context of the show itself, there are things that we have determined that we're going to do better for next year, in a way that kind of like relates to our connections and stations. Do you think that will change what your overall experience will be for the show? Like when we do that,
it'll shift.
Okay,
it'll be fun in a different way.
I agree with that.
I'll be completely honest with you. I'm still planning on doing Hall H.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially for the DC stuff.
Absolutely.
Which was probably one of the bigger disappointments this year. And as many times as, I'm like talking to some people about it, and they're like, does DC even have anything come out? And I go, Joker.
Right. And we always forget.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah,
they're like, oh, that's right. That is coming out.
And,
every single time.
Yeah. And it's, they didn't have to do anything. Because let's be honest, Marvel didn't do anything. We'll discuss it. But Marvel didn't do anything spectacular.
They did not.
And Warner Brothers knows how to put a show on it.
Yes, they do. I think that was the thing that disappointed me the most, because when you first told me that, and I'm like, okay, let me see what you're talking about. And the presentation with the extended screens, I'm like, holy crap, this is awesome. And it wasn't even just like superhero stuff. The Harry Potter, was it Fantastic Beasts stuff? Like everything that Warner Brothers did was amazing.
Yes.
So I am disappointed that they weren't there at all.
Yeah, they win the presentation every year.
Yeah. So,
except maybe last year when Black Adam.
I mean, it was cool.
Yeah, but it was whatever.
Yeah. Do you want to do more industry parties?
I mean, I'm fine with that, but I'm also one of those people that gets bored really quickly if I'm not engaged.
I got you.
I'm not going to go get in someone's face
to be like, hey,
I do this.
Right.
I'd be like, I want to have a conversation with someone. I don't want to schmooze.
I agree with that. Although I am guilty of attempting to schmooze when we first got our tickets. I will openly tell the viewing public that when we were coming out of the big hall, I saw it was like 3-4 staffers that had HBO Max. What did they say they were? Stagehands?
Yeah.
And tried to drum up some conversation just to see what kind of connection can we make here. Flat, y'all. Like if there was any sort of, and I don't want to say necessarily that I failed in the conversation. They were not ready for anyone to address them under any circumstance. Like they seem like they very much so fly under the radar at events like this, and no one talks to them.
Yeah, they're like, we're here to do a job.
That's it. Why are you talking to us?
I was like, hey, I appreciate that you do that job, because I can understand that it's hard to get the people where they need to go.
Absolutely. So, in the view of like wanting to be in a space to be seen, I did go to the Eisners, and last year I went to the awards show part. This year I got to sit at a table, which was beautiful experience. Like, let me just give a shout out to Jen King of Space Cadets Comics in Texas. Definitely appreciate her, that invite, and the opportunity to, I guess, kind of be on the other side of the table. Because like if you just go, which you can do, you sit like in the back of the room and it's projected so you can see it up on screens, but there's an immediate disconnect to the actual presentation of the event itself. So being at the tables was a beautiful thing. Like it was very different. The Eisners is such an interesting thing because we hear about it like in the aftermath, and we care about who won, but to actually be in the room, it's a true legit like award show thing. Like they have big productions. So like there was Phil Lamar and Tom, and I keep forgetting which Tom he is. He's the one that's in Reno 911.
Lennon.
Thank you. Because I almost said Kenny, and I'm like, no, it's different. Double N. Lennon. You're absolutely right. He was there. 2 actors from Stranger Things were there. Like folks from all over the place were there to like give like presentations or awards stuff. Like they put some effort into this, and I'm almost concerned. Like, why don't they televise this? Because it's a worthwhile like venture to put out into the world. Like it's beautiful, really well done, and everything. One of the things that I actually caught footage of was the in memoriam that they showed of like creators that have gone, in the last year. And there was something about that. Maybe it was, the recentness of my mom's passing or whatever, but I was fascinated by just the showcase of people that either I knew who they were or I didn't know who they were in comics, this medium that I love. And the fact that the industry as a whole is like, remember this person. Even if it's just for right now, remember this person. And that was a beautiful, beautiful thing. One of the key things that I got to do there, though, was Tom Taylor is he's an Australian writer, currently doing Nightwing, wrote Deceased. Great writer, love his stuff. He, in Nightwing 100, established that Dick has a father-son relationship with Bruce, and I've always been like, I don't see dad. Dad is not who I get from the Bruce Dick relationship.
I've always gotten like older brother.
That's what I always got.
Yeah.
It's definitely what I always got. And I had to ask him because in Deceased, he actually has Alfred taking on like this very paternal position and referring to all of them as my sons. And I'm like, that makes sense to me. Like that works. So I asked him, and I was like, which one do you lean more towards? And he kind of looked like, no one's ever asked me that. And I'm like, well, you've established both essentially, but which one do you lean more towards? And so he interestingly said that he felt like Dick got two dads when like in Bruce and in Alfred. It's not my headcanon, but I respect his answer. Like, but I was just curious, like as someone who has touched on it, like which one do you actually lean towards? And the fact that he had an answer was wonderful. And going to the Eisners gave me the opportunity to actually ask that question. So I implore like any comic book creator that wants to rise up, go to things like that, because one, you're in the room where it happens. That's number one. And you never know who you're going to meet. And those are huge opportunities. I saw Scott Snyder there, and crazy enough, I go to say hi to Scott, and I've known Scott for a little while.
Yeah.
He introduces me to this guy, Jeff, and Jeff is the chief tech officer at Comixology. And so now, like, I got Jeff's contact, so, I've communicated with Jeff a couple times. You never know who's in the room and who you might meet in those situations.
Yeah.
So highly recommend going to those things, guys, because it's opportunity just waiting for you. So definitely do that. My last thing that I want to ask you about, there was a very interesting person who was at San Diego. A lot of people saw him. I personally did not. That while he was there, it was all love. And then seemingly the week after, the news of why he was there, super problematic for a lot of people. Colin Kaepernick. Did you see him?
Nope.
Okay. He has launched a new comic book platform called Lumi that uses AI in order to create comics. And he was there, he was showing face. There's a lot of people, oh my God, Colin Kaepernick's so dope. Once it was revealed that he was there to promote this AI platform, the industry turned on him so hard. It was insane. I mean, we're talking straight up vitriol bad. Now, I personally have no problem with it. I have no problem with the platform. I have no problem with AI. It's not going to stop me from doing what I'm doing.
Right.
But wow, you talk about a changeover in reception. It was incredible. Like, obviously, him kneeling during the national anthem got a lot of people riled up during a certain period of time. This was almost worse than that to me, because there were so many people during Comic-Con that were like, oh my God, Colin Kaepernick's here. That's so dope. And then immediately were like, F this guy.
Well, I don't think the two equate.
I agree with that.
Because one is not a threat
right
to someone's livelihood. And that's the thing. It's like, using AI is one thing as a tool.
Yes.
Relying on AI
becomes something different.
Completely different.
Becomes something very different. And I literally got into a discussion yesterday about it, where I was pointing out facets that I think Lumi will do. And I'm like, I get that there are a lot of people that you hear AI, they just shut down. Like, I get it. Do I agree? No. Because, again, you won't ever learn how to make it a tool if you do that.
Right.
But, man, that part of reliance on it is such a, like, it's a demonized point of view. Like, it is hardcore. Like, people are like, you're not a creator. And I'm like, guys, slow down. Just because they make it doesn't even mean it's going to be successful.
Yeah,
like,
to some people, it's a real black and white
very,
issue.
Very.
And to some, it's, gray.
Yeah. Yeah. Varying shades. Yep. But it was such a very interesting thing to see that he was there, and there was a bunch of people that were like, oh my God. And then when the news dropped, because Bleeding Cool drops the article, And Rich Johnston has his own take on things, always has. The immediacy of people being like, forget this guy, hate his guts, da da da, insane, absolutely insane. So yeah, it was a gamut. It was a gamut of things. But definitely, I had a great time. I am super eager for next year to see if our change in format affects our enjoyment of the whole thing, like in terms of what we get to do, how we do it. I'm super duper excited to see how that will work out.
It'll work out better than it did this year.
I agree. Yes, indeed. Guys, thank y'all for tuning in for this episode of Into the Chatterverse. If you have not liked and subscribed, what are you doing? Come on, push the button, be notified. We want to tell you that we're in your inbox because we drop semi-regularly. We try to do our best. But we will see you guys next time. I'm Victor Dangerous, the hardest working man in comics.
And I'm Bill, and I'm still draining.
Ew.
Yes.
Ew. TMI.
Yes.
We'll see you guys next time.